Let us waste no time on introductions. Painting gold, or in this case brass trim, is probably the most tedious part of painting Chaos Space Marines. Today I want to show you an alternative for which I began by base coating the trim very loosely. One could even begin from a metallic primer, but I chose the classic black as a starting point. Afterwards, though not necessary, a quick dry brush of a lighter tone adds an extra layer of detail to the metallics, without me worrying about making a mess over the rest of the model, which is still unpainted. And as with any dry brush, I added a bit of moisture to the brush before I began, so to reduce the dusty finish this technique often leaves behind. Also removing the excess paint on a texture palette, as I don't want a paper towel sucking out the moisture. With the trim ready, it is time to paint the armor, for which I'll be using oil paints which I'll dilute to a milky consistency using white spirits. The aim is to abuse the low surface tension of the oils to create an opaque wash thanks to their high pigmentation, which will run along the edges and fill up the armor panel recess almost on its own, while still providing full coverage in a single coat. However, I am not going to sugarcoat this technique as if it were much better or faster than painting the trim in a classic manner. As I said in the beginning, painting trim can be tedious and even miserable if we're talking about more than a dozen models. What I want is to share an alternative which you might find less stressful. And I think that with very little practice, this technique could lead to a result which would require less mistakes to be corrected. And in case we make any of those, next you'll see how easy they are to fix. Any mistakes or overspills can be cleaned off using a brush with some white spirits. And quick disclaimer, the only red oil in my collection was a high-grade one, which is quite stubborn, so while you will see a bit of tinting left behind, this won't be the case for you. When it comes to painting the rest of the model, you will have to leave this layer of oil to cure overnight before continuing to work on the model. Not an issue for me, as I often take breaks and like painting through multiple sessions. But if you want to get the full model ready in a day, this method won't be for you. Once I had filled in the rest of the colors, such as the skin tone, bones and metals, I decided to try something new. While I never varnish my models before doing all washes, this time I gave the model a coat of gloss varnish, which apart from protecting the paint underneath, would help the paint flow into the recesses. This was a first for me, and while you have seen me use oil paints in the past countless times, this didn't work at all. But there is a lot to learn from this failure, which I'm not going to keep a secret just to look good, as my intention is to teach something new in every video. And don't worry, I'll be fixing this mess. But what went wrong? I could have gone for a bit more dilution on the oil wash, but still the paint was indeed having a hard time grabbing on anything that wasn't a recess or edge, which is what I was looking for, but looking at it now, it is not the best approach for this particular model. And I think highly textured areas which this model lacks would benefit more from this approach. Only the skulls in the axe I think benefited from this. When it came to the cleanup, the oils didn't get the usual grip or stain I like to work with while cleaning, and everything came off as I went over with the sponge. This would work well for very defined and thin recesses, where I could clean the surrounding area super easily while keeping the defined shadow. Think of a pin wash as an example. But over most of this model, this was just a mess. In the subject of gloss varnishes before oil washing, while it does help with lowering the surface tension and protects the paint underneath from any abrasive cleaning, which I know some people have trouble with, I would stay away from it for plain surfaces, and use it just for pin washing for now. I'll make sure to expand on the topic of varnishes for my remastered oil wash masterclass I plan to release this year. For now, I used white spirits to remove all the oil and reapplied the oils over a coat of matte varnish. I was more comfortable with this cleanup, as the oils come out slowly, leading to a smoother transition from where the oils pull to the raised details or flatter areas. This is the type of cleaning I enjoy the most, as I always feel in control first through the sponge and after through the Q-tip of how much and where do I want the color underneath to show through. and anything this sponge is unable to clean up, I can easily clean with a Q-tip with white spirits, which due to its size is unable to get into the recesses, so I'm safe from ruining any shadows. And here is the model after leaving the oils to dry overnight. Since this is a character model, I believe it deserves some extra work, so I'll add some highlights through the use of lines and scratches, which will boost the value that got tuned down after the overall oil wash. This could have also been done before the general oil wash, and would have led to the highlights blending more into the overall look, which leans more towards the dirty and desaturated hue. However, I actually was looking for the opposite, and wanted a bit more pop in the overall piece. And I'll reiterate that what I'm doing right now is nothing special, just tip-tapping my brush around, which shouldn't take me more than a pair of minutes per color. Time to add a couple of special effects to make this model stand out. First will be some simple OSL on the plasma, starting with a dry brush around the coils, which will create the glow around the area. I chose green so it would contrast nicely against the red armor. For the coils themselves, I began with a coat of white, which a light green would greatly benefit from, as a dark undertone would tone down the luminosity of the color. Having the white paint underneath will make the transparent paint look more bright. Back to the white, I washed some close to the bottom side of the coils to prepare the area for a wash of yellow-green, making it shine the brightest towards the bottom, which will read as the source of the light. With a smaller dry brush, I finished off by darkening the coils. Finally, this wouldn't be a corn model without blood, so I flicked some blood for the Blood God technical paint using a toothpick, to create droplets of blood splatter close to the axe. Thank you for watching the video till the end. I hope you got something useful out of it, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments and I'll get to them shortly.